Hi, my name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to video number 2, where I'm going to be interpreting all of the sayings in the book of Matthew and Jesus' pivotal work, the Sermon on the Mount, and interpreting those cryptic. Every one of those verses is cryptic. We know that. And interpreting them into plain language of what it would mean today. Now, I know because of the nature of what I'm doing and because it's so big, and you get into it, and if you're interested in the videos and watch, you can just see that it's like, well, this is like a college course sort of stuff. You're not going to pick it up in a video. It's going to take a while, and I get that. But people do jump in, they hear things, and they start throwing stuff in because they don't have the setup. They don't understand what's going on. I want to talk about two things. Number one, how I interpret. There was a comment made that there are many ways to interpret these things. You can come up with all kinds of things. And I'm going to say, nope, that's wrong. If there are many ways to interpret a verse, then you haven't interpreted. There's one thing there. If I'm the master teaching something, if I am Buddha saying that if a man has thought with an evil thought, pain follows him like a wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. I've got something that I mean in there, and I'm going to interpret that real quickly for you. A wheel represents a cycle. The evil thought represents, at the deepest level, the something you've named, something you had experienced before that is now in your mind that is unresolved, and it's not okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're evil. It means that it is evil to your existence. You might have been hurt by somebody and you hate them and you're ashamed and you're holding it and not healing from it. That is referred to as evil. You have to separate yourself from the term evil. It's not about you. It's about something that is evil to your life existence. Okay, so we've all had that happen. Pain follows cyclically. We are the ox. We become component parts of that. That is how we interpret it. We're parts of that verse, and this is meant to represent something. That if you've got something up here, the pain is going to keep cycling after you. That's what I mean when I make that verse. Now, if 1,000 different people interpret that verse and come up with 1,000 different interpretations, which one, if any one of them, came up with the one that I put in there? When we see Christianity and we see thousands and thousands of different denominations, that's exactly what is happening. They're not interpreting it the same way. So I'm going to suggest that these are a certain puzzle that are built in such a way that there is a process. And this is just by working it out. And that's what we're going to see in the video here as I go through it. If I understand, for example, at some point, how Buddha is teaching that this is a mental process, and I bring that to Jesus' work and try the same thing, thinking that he's just changed the verbiage of it, like karma is cause and effect, and the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you is cause and effect. When we see those similarities there, then we begin to understand what there is in the background. That's what I'm going after. I want to know the cause and effect, not the measure you mete unto others. What does that mean? I'm going to treat the verse in ways like that. As a seeker, this becomes critically important. The cause and effect is what we live through. And when we first start out life, that's what first sin is. We're living through effect, not understanding that what we're observing is actually, there's a cause behind it. So we are just becoming products of our physical life experiences, and we want to separate from that. We're now living through effect of our own cause. We don't know that. When we learn that, we can begin to separate from that. Cause and effect and cycles are incredibly important. That's how life unfolds. We observe it. If I am told, blessed are the poor in spirit, for mine is the kingdom of God, what does that mean? Or blessed is the poor. Which one is it? Am I supposed to be poor? Broke? Hungry? I don't know what, barely making it? Is that what that means? That's not interpreted. Blessed are the poor. You're not interpreting the verse. The other one says, blessed are the poor in spirit. So you go, okay, that gives a little bit something more. It sounds different. What's a spirit? How do I get poor in spirit? Spirit is an analog. We tend to think that that's a supernatural thing. Are you hurt? Do you want to be blessed? Your spirit has to be poor. How do you do that? We have to interact with these. We have to understand that the terms they're using fit up here. The spirit is what we're functioning through in the background. The spirit, if you treat the spirit in this material and interpretation as the bundle of memories and perceptions that we live through, blessed are the poor in spirit, bam, you can do something with it. It is now interactive. It is now the same thing as Buddha saying, seek emptiness, you will find nirvana. Blessed are the poor in spirit, you will find the kingdom of God. It's there in the background. That's what I'm doing. The other thing is there is no supernatural. This is all natural. We fit in the universe, in that energy universe, through a means up here, that these are electrochemical memories that exist with a storage and an energy about them that even if we're not consciously, if we don't have them consciously pulled up and we're looking at them, we still have them in the filing cabinets. They're still there. They're still in the background, and they're not, they're effective in life. We are functioning in an energy collective together. And when we see energy, hear energy, smell, taste, or sense, we can feel like our, part of us. If you ever feel like someone's sneaking up behind you and you look back, is it because you heard something in your head, turn around, something sneaking up behind you, or because you felt something? Where does that feeling come from? If you see something, you're going to look. You feel something. What organs are we using for that? Like the endocrine system, the central nervous system, the intestinal system, all of that. We feel it. Okay, so that is how I believe that the supernatural happens, that it is a natural process and that things can work there. And that would explain it. And that would explain why everybody experiences it. Yeah, I can feel the glory of God too by talking to my granddaughter and having so much fun that it just makes my heart lift. I know that feeling. I know both of the feelings, and I know they're the same feeling. And I also know that you can invert the energy of that, do the same thing, put a bunch of people together protesting that hate something, and they will get together and get so outlandish that they will do stuff in a group that they won't do on their own, and then later go, I'm sorry I did that. Yeah, you got caught up in it. The same field. We are in that collective, and we can see it, we can feel it, we can experience it. So that's how I explain things. I'm not going to say supernatural. There's a time in my life when I heard Larry's dead in my head when my brother died. I eventually explained that as that something is bigger out there. That's God. That's where we need to get to. Not out there. What is this out here that is functioning for us? We are in and of that energy. Okay, so anyway, so before I move on from that verse, actually, you saw what we did with the Jesus verse. Oh, that's about me. It's emptying myself out. So I treated that verse by turning it inward and making it a component part of myself. Now, how do I maintain consistency with the rest of the material? Treat every single verse exactly that same way. No deviation. So there's not going to be any supernatural invoked here. I will not make those claims. I cannot. I can't show anything. What I do here is I talk through everything and try to demonstrate what's there. And there's a repetitive nature to it. I'm going to tell you what, there's like 20 or 30 steps to enlightenment. When you're ready to go, you turn inward, you start dealing with things, you're dealing with memories. It's probably less than that. You probably get it down to 10 if you just, but look how big the material is. So you've got 10 steps and 10,000 stories. What you have is 10,000 different ways of delivering those 10 steps. It's going to get repetitive. That's exactly what this is. We really get stuck in our modern day biases, though. We don't see this material for what it was originally for. Imagine that you're back there. You don't read, you don't write. There's nothing to read and write anyway. Somebody's got scrolls, but you have to go listen to people preach, teach, or tell stories. And if you want to pass those along, you have to do it through memory. That's it. That would be a significant component of their everyday life for their entire lifetimes. But these little ways out are cryptic, but they're simple. Try not to hold them in such a reverent sort of a light that it becomes untouchable. We're kids, uneducated kids 2,000 years ago, trying to find our way out of this. They're helping us. Go from there. At the same time, make no bones about it. It is nested in analogous verbiage that creates the religion. And the religion itself, as the carrying shell, has its own impact on the population in many ways. That's a lot to unwrap from. Okay, now having said that, I have to interpret the way I am. In order for me to make these mentally interactive that way, God has to be that higher self, that place that I can get to up here. If God is out there someplace, I'm not going to make this verse interactive. If something exists beyond life, and there's something that I find in here, I want to read this. I'm not going to treat it like something supernatural and worship it. It's going to get interpreted. It's going to get treated like Buddha's work, okay? It's important to maybe make a clear point to one commenter is that, the Jesus death and resurrection in my work didn't happen. That's a supernatural event. However, I can explain why that's an important story. When we started off in Genesis, and you just have to go back through my work. There's so much of it, and I've got to do something else in this video. There's a point where there's a flood, Noah's flood. This is the first time in the material where we are going on the hero's journey. We're turning inward and destroying our world and emerging on the other side naked, drunk, feeling a new way, just buzzed on our new wine in our tent before it goes bad. It's going to start cycling. This process is going to happen over and over again through Abram to Abraham and on down. These are iterations of us in the story. They're not different people. They're not real things. The flood was it rained for 40 days, 40 nights, that transition right there. 40 is an analog with the 7 and the 3. How long was Jesus in? He died and emerged. The earth died and came out anew. Jesus died and came out anew. Those are the same analogous point. It represents our purging. If you treat it like it's true and it's a supernatural event, you're not going to find that it's about us and our healing. We're not going to treat it the same way. I am going to interpret it in a way that it becomes mentally interactive for me. If there's something supernatural beyond that, that's for you to say for yourself. I will not make any claims that I cannot see or demonstrate. And this material is such that once I'm done, you realize it's not something that you listen to somebody and believe because they told you. You look at it and go, oh, I see how that works. This is a puzzle for me. These were being passed around as stories, and all of the clues to solve it are in the puzzle if I know what I'm supposed to do with it. I could metaphorically say that it shows the way out of life. The thing is that nobody can take you out. You have to take your own path. You have to turn inward yourself. So what I'm doing here is what? Just telling you the path that I'm on. It's up to you to take it or not. Seriously, that's it. When it's an inner path, it's yours. We're just talking about information. There's no preaching going on. It's just trying to figure out what they got going on. And meanwhile, the people that don't know what to do with it and don't know that it's a puzzle, they're going to worship it and they're going to live their life by it. And what I have to say, I do understand this now. I didn't in the beginning, but it is a mental process. I found this out by just working it out in my mind. I accidentally, through having lots and lots of time in my life and an obsession with this, just continued to play out all kinds of myth and religion in my mind because I was seeing similarities. Once I saw the Buddha-Jesus connection, that early on in life, that's what kind of got things going. So this is something that is approachable. So when you listen to what I'm doing, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to believe him or not, you would go, oh, I either worked that out in my own head or not. I'm like anybody else back then. I'm getting this story and it's got lessons. They got lost. Dan just happens to be the one finding the way back in right now. I'm not doing anything magical. I just have the time. I see something else. That's what I'm going after here. All right. Without further ado, then, that was a long setup. Sometimes that's important. People are going, what's going on here? Ultimately, what this is taking the process of understanding everything Buddha teaches is mental and working it out until it makes sense in my brain and doing the exact same thing here. Treating it like it's mental and working it out until it makes sense in my brain. And then when I do, guess what? Buddhism and Jesus, same thing. All right, so having said that, let me just go ahead and get started on number 2 here. I'll put a link below to number 1, and if you're just getting this video for the first time and it doesn't seem like, if it doesn't make sense, go ahead and back up to the previous video. And this is actually, the third? There's 3 places I find Jesus's work collection. the Gospel of Thomas, the Sermon on the Plain, and the Sermon on the Mount. I did the Gospel of Thomas already, and I did the Sermon on the Plain already, and now this is the Sermon on the Mount, which is the biggest chunk. And they're all in this one playlist right here if you want to look through them. This is all Jesus' work without the ministry monomyth story that is added in. Okay. All right. I think it would be fun to review actually what we did last time. This is my interpretation after we finished. This is the end of what you would find at the end of video number 1. And I've added a little bit to it here. This is the Sermon on the Mount, my interpretation. The pathway to inner peace is what I call it, a mentally interactive approach when I get finished. Interpretation by Daniel Luke Paulson. I read and interpret these till I understand them as a mentally interactive or instructional healing process. A judgment, as used, means something we have in memory and are holding on to with negative emotion and negative physical consequences in our life, also known as naming in Genesis and in Taoism. Basically, it is a memory coupled with an emotion of varying magnitude, but with negative results for our life. That is a judgment. Okay, things that we need to resolve. The Beatitudes. That's what we finished last video. My interpretation. Blessed are you who are devoid of judgments. You will achieve inner peace. Blessed are you who release your stored judgments. You will find inner peace. You see, they're simple. They're going to be repetitive. Blessed are you when you won't fight yourself. You will find inner peace. Yeah, if you go back and read these, you would see that when we fight ourselves, we make the issue stronger. We must stop fighting the enemy within because we actually create it as we fight it. Blessed are you who desire inner peace with heartfelt passion. You will find it. Blessed are you who stop hating your memories. That will ease them. Blessed are you who are devoid of inner hurt. You will live through your higher awareness. Blessed are you who make peace with your past. You will live with inner peace. Blessed are you who resolve what is in the way of your inner peace, for you will live joyous. And finally, blessed are you when your inner hurt is awakened by our desire to heal, so we face it openly. And so we face it openly. It hurts, feels bad, it tries to hide, causes us to lash out, and so it persecutes us. See, this is what happens when we turn to face our fears. We don't like it. That's why we don't face them. But when we do, this is what it's telling us. When we do face them, this is what happens. It's going to try to hide, cause us to lash out, and persecute us. It hurts to heal because we must face the hurt. But when we do face it, it begins to go away. Rejoice in that process. The healing will bring you to more inner peace. This is how it works for everyone. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead to what this is going to end up being at the end. This is what I've got for this video. Salt and light. You begin life pure and unified in mind and experience, but then you experienced and judged life and have become divided as a result. We have lost the inner peace we seek. What's next? 14, 15, and 16, I've combined them here. When I have used my higher awareness working with consciousness and memories to heal all of my hurt, to live through my higher awareness, my detached self, I will find freedom from all, and my life experience will be free. The Law and the Prophets. I am not here to replace your teaching or your called gurus on their own cryptic healing adventures from antiquity. Yeah, he's not here to take over for the Jews and become the Savior. Not at this level. I'm here to reinforce their teaching of a path to inner peace. When you are ready to heal, you will need to follow the complete patterned pathway. Those who do not know the steps can't teach them to others and are not understanding the self. Those who do know and accomplish them and show the way to others will feel inner peace. If you don't gain purity exceeding the religious teachers, you'll never find inner peace. Don't follow them. Turn inward to the self. Okay, I'm going to stop right there just because I don't know how far we're going to get along in the video here. I will switch over to where I start making the interpretation, and I will cover how I got to those those interpreted lines. It's like, well, that doesn't quite sound like it first did. How did you get there? So let's go take a look at that right now. I get it. Yeah. Okay, for the document that I've got that I'm working on here, just a refresher, everything that is in black is all the Bible verbiage minus Jesus sayings. The red are all of the Jesus sayings. Those are the secret teachings. That is what is primarily here. The Sermon on the Mount. The blue, there's a lot of blue in here. These are all of my notes, as well as the translator's footnotes and bold title breaks that are added in. And the green that I've got here is my interactive plain language interpretation of the verse. After I collect those on the other page, I just make them all black again, but they're green right here. And lavender are just anywhere I've repeated a verse that has already been posted in red. I get done with a big explanation down here, and to make comparisons between the two, I'll just repost the verse down below. You'll see that as we go. Okay, this was the entire work through the Beatitudes, and let's see, we'll get down here to, here we go, video number 2, this one's Salt and Light. It starts with verse number 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. Okay, let's talk through some things here. When we are infants, we are in our mentally pure state, prior to judging life experiences. We were ready to start to become what we eventually became, but this time was just before we started that process. This is our critically known and referred to point in the beginning. We started our life to become, we started out life and then we became divided after that. But we didn't know we were doing that. We were metaphorically blinded and filling our mind's eye, starting to put the mote in our eye. It is a very specific part of the psyche and easy to identify, but is the hardest to work with. We inadvertently make it so. See video 1 in the series. This verse replicates a style I call I am that. In this case, we treat all verses that are of this style the same way. I'll use the components of Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus, for example. I can be a wheel, an ox drawing a carriage, a clay pot, a cup, a wineskin, builder of a house, owner of a vineyard, fisherman casting his net, etc. The verse here even tells us that we are the salt of the earth. Okay, so let's work to understand the analogs. Earth we know is ourself, who we are, and how we experience life as a result. And you know what I mean by that, right? Let me rephrase that just for a second. We all live on the same earth, but we all live with a different experience of that earth. This earth refers to that. This is my experience, not the earth we live on, but the experience that is mine that is different from the experience of yours. We live on different earths at that point, but we really don't. We're living in different mental experiences and perceptions of what the earth is. And that's our life experience. Salt was very critical to them in their life, pre-technology. It was used to preserve foods, primarily meats, to allow them to be stored for later eating. So then salt is being used here as what preserves our earth or life. But as life goes on, it loses its purity. How can we restore ourselves? We are no longer good for anything but to be trampled underfoot. What is trampled underfoot? We live life as part of the sea of what is happening. We flow with our past judgments and fears as opposed to standing back, detached from being racked by life. We find inner peace and ease. This verse reminds me of another to compare from elsewhere. This helps us to average out the concepts we're looking to understand. This is from the Gospel of Thomas, verse 11, part 4. On the day when you were one, you became two. But when you became two, what will you do? Let's go back and reread this one again. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. On the day when you were one, you became two. But when you became two, what will you do? In this verse, we are the person who was born as one. In other words, at this point we had not become internally divided, feeling the turmoil of inner unresolved conflict of judgments. But then we became two. This is a normal human course of life, and some divisions among people are much bigger than others. It depends on how we were raised. But generally speaking, we grow up and learn by judging what amounts to be effect in humanity. Basically, this is the physically manifest behavior we emotionally experience and remember. Since we don't understand what is driving this behavior, we simply become part of what we experience and judge in life. It is what drives us to judge. If you see a parent screaming and yelling at a child with threatening tones, do you see a person who does not deserve to be a parent? Or do you see a flaw in humanity, and this person was once screamed and yelled at with threatening tones from their parent and are simply acting out what is unresolved within themselves? Humanity is in a conditioned chain of mental reflexes. The question is, can we understand that we come from this same flow? This is what we have become. This is what we wish to rise above. To understand this is to have compassion for the parents of unresolved hurt, as well as the fact that we see how it gets passed along. Without some form of psychological intervention, either from without or within, the child will one day be a parent standing over their child, serving as the next link, unbeknownst to them. When we judge what is already finished or manifest, we mentally wire to be our own part of that process. We add to the collective with our personal judgments and also dictate our own flow in life. We become what we believe, but we have learned our belief from effect, not cause. We are like the masses when we live from here. This is where we are metaphorically trampled underfoot before we awaken or come to mental awareness that we are products of deeper cause. Okay, so with that in mind, we return to the verse. It's about us. I'm the one who was born unified in mind and soul. I did not live with inner conflict and my resultant painful life. But then I became two, divided. My unresolved judgments in life accumulated, and now I am two. I want to feel and experience one thing, but I actually put on an act to fool those around me so that they cannot see I am hurting in some deep recesses. I trap and hide what I do not like. Yet it emerges. I am not one anymore. What will I do? This teaching step in the verse stops here, and the greater source body of work needs to be interpreted to complete the understanding of the path. Each source should be treated as if it is a personal life guru with many steps and many repeats. So here in the Sermon on the Mount, instead of being one and becoming two and wondering what to do next, we are the salt of the earth who lost its ability to preserve and now are living trampled underfoot. Conceptually, they are the same thing in this manner. I started out pure, then became a product of a hurtful life, and now am living there, wondering what to do. I am two, or to return to nesting it in analogs, I am trampled under the foot of physical life. Okay, so down here again, the violet, that's the original verse. I've just repeated it so we know that it doesn't appear as part of it's a repeat of what we've already covered. And 13 in green is my current reworded version. So it went from, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. 2. You begin life pure and unified in mind and experience. But then you experienced and judged life and have become divided as a result. We have lost the inner peace we seek. What's next? Okay, 14. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. People do not light a lamp and put it under the bushel basket. Rather, they put it on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. All right, we can look at this in a number of ways. I've got here now, instead of being the salt of the earth, we are the light of the world. Earth and the world mean the same thing as far as analogs. They are our experiences on our perception of the earth or the world. But the verse shifts through a few different analogs meaning the same thing. I'll detail this after this section. The salt and light are different. Let's talk these through. The salt of the earth is what we seek to recapture, the flavor of our childhood self. We lost that in the last verse as we became divided or lost our flavor, and in the end asked what we do next. This is what we do next. We must illuminate what we keep in the dark. We hide it away, which means we don't face it for healing, but rather hold it in our growing contempt. Illuminating it means more than just putting a light on it or remembering it. It means understanding it until we see it for what it really is, and it ceases to hurt our physical existence, thus improving our quality of heaven on earth or level of inner peace, our life. Moving on in this verse, we are the world, the city built on a hill or the house. It's a rich verse. The light is understanding and the peace that comes from it. Okay, if we go to the last half and interpret it, we have an easier time, or at least I do. Okay, so what was that? It says, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. So let's identify that. The light is understanding and the peace that comes from it. If we went to the last half and interpreted that, that's what we just did. We'd have an easier time, or at least I do. Shining a light is healing a problem. We typically have more than one thing to resolve. Therefore, the others refer to our other issues. We work one out, and we see it as the right thing in order to heal. Therefore, the rest of our hidden hurt would surrender to the same processes. Everything we illuminate will be healed. This one also works well on the shell, as it simply states to be an example. However, it also states that they will see our good works and give glory to our Father in heaven. We already know Father in heaven to be the higher self. Praising that is giving into it. I resolved this shame. Now I can resolve that hate, etc. We have stockpiled judgments and wish to let them all go. Rinse and repeat, or keep at it till then. Let me reread this. I did it the other day. I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about here. Everything we illuminate will be healed. That's from our memories. This one also works well on the shell. Okay, so that means we're not interpreting it. We want to be an example to humans. However, it also states that they will see the good works and give glory to our Father in heaven. Okay, so people, that's what it says, that if people see you, they're going to give glory to your Father in heaven. Does that really happen? Only if people believe what you believe. This would come with caveats all the time if you put it in the physical world. Okay, so we realized that with caveats, it's not much of it's not very mentally interactive, does it? If we put it in the psyche, it also states that they will see our good works and give glory to our Father in heaven. Who does that from the outside? This happens from the inside. We already know Father in heaven to be the higher self. Praising that is giving into it. Praising the Father is like, I had some shame. I dealt with it and I no longer feel bad. Now I've got another issue that has maybe some more shame or something else like that I haven't resolved. However, that part that I have hidden away now knows, oh, actually it's my consciousness that realizes now that I've accomplished that one healing, that everything else can crumble the same way. It's hard to get through that first one. Then when you do, that's like the cornerstone. Then everything else crumbles down. So I resolved the shame. Now I know I can resolve that hate, etc. We have stockpiled judgments and wish to let them all go. Rinse and repeat, or keep at it till done. Yeah, you can't just say, I'm going to let it all go. I'm better. I rise above it. Because you know what? It still acts out. There's memories that have to be dealt with. They're stored. They are stored. They have to be manipulated to be changed. So in the second half, what I get is all of your issues will resolve in the same way by employing who we truly are, the higher awareness. Now I try to work backwards from there. I am the house. I will shift from an analog to mentally interactive. To illuminate all the rooms, I must keep the light out in the open. Or to become devoid of my judgments, I must see them all as simply that, judgments. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden seems to be an overview. It's almost as if this verse started by being zoomed out and then zoomed in. Illuminate a city, illuminate the inside of the house so that all rooms will benefit from the light. Mentally interactive, a city illuminated is us having a good life. We are built on high ground and well lit. We did this by illuminating all the dark rooms in our house. This is still highly steeped in metaphoric verbiage. I will reverse the verse when I interpret it. It contains all the elements but flows differently. Okay, so it said, "You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden." People do not light a lamp and keep it under the bushel basket. Rather, they put it on a lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. I've interpreted that to become mentally interactive at this level and at this interpretation. 14, 15, and 16. When I have used my higher awareness, working with my consciousness and my memories to heal all of my hurt, I will find freedom from all, and my experience will be joyful. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hidden. We want to build our city on a hill. We want to go to an elevated place. We want to rise up above the physical. People do not light a lamp and put it under a bushel basket. So to get there, we need to illuminate everything and all of that within us. This is not for people. This is for us. Other people may see it, but that doesn't mean they're going to give glory to your Father. There are some people that don't believe what you believe, and they're going to hate you for what you believe. So that is a caveat. The only way to make it 100% is to make it a psychological verse. Then it can't be argued with anymore. Okay, the law and the prophets. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. All right, we have to take the body of work in its time, 2,000 years ago. Who's he talking to? I have to resist overthinking this one. It can play out in the psyche, but isn't meant to. It works together for verses 17 through 20. Again, I find it helpful for me to interpret these backwards. The last line is typically the lesson, and once we have that, we can better dial in their analogous verbiage. This is physical and is to the people who call him the new Messiah. Judaism was to go by the wayside as Christian movements under the Romans were using, developing, and refining works such as the Gospels and what eventually became known as Gnostic practitioners. The law was Moses' law, Judaism. Not everyone thought Jesus was the returning Messiah, but many did and wanted him to lead them out from under oppression of the Roman occupation. He starts right off there telling him that's not the case. I'm not here for that. I'm not here to rid Judaism nor the prophets they used in their stories. I have come to fulfill them. This is tough. It's what makes people connect to non-existent dots in the Bible to claim Jesus was predicted. He's fulfilling a prophecy. But we won't look at it like that. I'm going to say something next that Jesus knew, or rather the person or people who created this monomyth knew, but most people do not. This is something that becomes evident through the study of the common monomyth and its conceptual interpretation. The Old Testament is mostly all monomyths, not Psalms and a few others, but story after story by the prophets who are called represent who is the called person looking for enlightenment. Every one of them is a well-constructed, secretly taught pathway to inner peace. All of Jesus' work is the same way. How to self-heal, nested in a religious style for the blind masses to both be controlled and to disseminate the template to the seekers who find it. Also, there's more to it than that. I should just take that on. How to self-heal, nested in a religious style for the blind masses to... Yeah, they are. Look supernatural, blind masses. To both be guided. If you're on the path, you know that. All right? To both be guided and to disseminate the template to the seekers who find it. So every monomyth leads to healing, over and over again. Watch this example from Jason of Greek Argonautica and Moses from Exodus. Calling, both were saved as kids and sent away to be raised away from home. 2. The cycles of pain.
Phineas has harpies defile his food daily. Egypt has plagues that decimates their life. 3. Struggle to leave the past. Jason in the island of old gods and Moses and Pharaoh. Both leave but are then chased after. Supernatural aid. Jason gets help from goddesses along the journey, and Moses gets a magical staff from God on Mount Horeb. This would be like Thor getting his hammer. And 5, we've got crossing the threshold. Jason sails through clashing rocks, barely making it through. Moses runs through the Red Sea, barely making it through, etc. The patterns emerge in places easy to see them. Some places are much harder. I want to be clear about what I see happening here. That call that there's a few people isolated. This is many are called, few are chosen. This is really not very many people are going to do this. They're not. Then what do we have? We've got the cycles of pain. The reason we go on the journey is because we have cycles of pain happening. We struggle to leave the past behind. That is there. If the past comes after us, it's a difficult process. We have to cross the threshold. We have to turn inward. Oh, that's supernatural aid. That is knowledge of what to do, how to manage this material, how to self-heal. Is there anything supernatural in that? Nope. That's still an analogous term. It is knowledge. It's not supernatural aid. It is knowledge of what to do in the mind, how to self-heal. And then crossing the threshold, going in, and the steps continue that way. The stories are built using conceptual component parts of that journey right there. Cross a river, cross whatever, crossing a threshold. There could be multiple thresholds. There is. You've got one threshold where you go into your mind. Anybody can go there. We got a massive stuff, but there's another threshold in there where is the dark place. We don't want to go. That's a difficult threshold. So in the stories, you're going to find those elements there. They're all psychological, built on that self-healing process. What we just saw was a monomyth on a self-healing path. So when Jesus says he is not here to abolish but to fulfill, then teaches the same self-healing process from ancient times, in new verbiage, however, that's what he's telling us, the seekers. He is not fulfilling the physical prophecy. That's to keep the masses looking outward and acting in compliance with the non-interpreted or incorrectly interpreted teaching. Jesus' stories are more monomyths, which are based on the self-healing pathway to enlightenment. He's not changing anything on the template. We still interpret his teachings the same as the old teachings and find the pathway in. The Jesus-era material was simply 1,500 years newer than the Jewish material they were hearing. They had a lot to straighten out from the old days. Imagine stoning a woman to death on their father's doorstep because they aren't a virgin on your wedding night, or not allowing crippled men to come to the altar. That's just a few draconian rules. I'm sure they didn't like hearing this from the Pharisees and scribes who are simply teaching what the Bible says, just like Christians do today. In fact, that's where this section on the law and the prophets is taking us, to turn away from preachers and teachers of the religion. This will be common in Jesus' teachings. He warns us in coded verbiage to turn inward to the self and not follow others on their paths leading outward. So the clues are in the material to turn inward. Okay, that verse we had earlier on, if one verse says, blessed is the poor in spirit, and the other one just says, blessed and poor, how do you know? You just always make it about the spirit. You don't have to be told. Interpret it anyway. Okay, the verse was, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. All right, I'm going to torque this one pretty hard. What that means is I'm going to stretch this one deep into understanding of what is nested there. This one is going to be hard or impossible to see for any non-seeker of this inner pathway. One must search this material with an open mind and not a preconceived conviction. How hard can you push that idea? One must interpret this material with zero supernatural claims. I can get there. It implies true. Okay. So I change, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, to fulfill, to I am not here to replace your teachers or the called people on their cryptic healing adventures of old. I am here to mimic their teachings of inner peace. Okay? That's for the template. If you take it off the template, you have to include that part that says, I am not here to be your savior. I have not come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come here to say Judaism is wrong. We are now turning to Christianity. That is what he is saying there. The rabbi Jesus is not doing that. Okay, 18. For I truly tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, one iota, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Okay, we must identify heaven and earth as analogs in this verse. Do you see the sequence here? First is heaven, then is earth. Remember in Genesis, the earth got so corrupted it had to be drowned out and restarted. Noah's flood. But way before that was naked, unashamed, and in the Garden of Eden. That's us. Creation is each of our own creation and life until we start an inward path of healing. We have gone from pure to sin, to divided and tied to the physical in time, going on till we are ready to turn inward for healing. Noah represents us and is the first called in the Bible's monomyth sequence. It never stops from there. Okay, given that this replicates that early teaching in a standard document, the book of Matthew, I would identify the idea that first heaven, our happy infant selves, passed away due to our judged life experiences. We died to ourself in some teachings, but we also want earth to pass away if we reread the verse. Until heaven and earth pass away. That's our first life, our unaware self, before we decide to change, and the called person is analogous for us when going on a journey of interchange. Same place in life as we have two lives, and the second one starts as soon as we realize we only have one life. We want to heal and make amends. We want a kinder, gentler, wiser life and self. We want to be free of our bondages. The verse above suggests that we start out in heaven, then move to earth, which represents being emotionally free and joyous, then moving on to a normal life and becoming emotionally attached. But for them to pass away, what would be the next step from there? Inner peace or healing from a hurtful and unresolved issue. Now, next, it tells us that nothing from the law will be left out in order to succeed in this passing. The passing is from hurt to healed, and the monomyth steps, when interpreted, take us on that inward path. This specific sermon is not a monomyth. It is a complete teaching without turning it into an adventure story. Jesus' ministry, as he travels from place to place, is a monomyth like a Greek adventure, sailing from island to island. They represent steps in our psyche and lessons along the way to our enlightenment. Carried in stories that make fables look like child's play, they're carried in stories that make fables look like child's play, yeah. Jesus' ministry follows a coded path established thousands of years before him. The Babylonian Enuma Elish is an early monomyth. Jesus should be known as a guru on a par with Lao Tzu and the Buddha. The religious style of analog is what makes it so difficult. We emotionally attach to that. What he is saying is, if you want to heal, you have to go through the steps. Okay, so I interpret this one from, for truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, as my early life and then my regular life pass away, not one letter, not one iota, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. I've changed that to, when you are ready to heal, you will need to follow the complete pattern pathway. 19. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, the commandments he's referring to here are the interactive steps. They are required to self-heal. You must follow them. Those who do not and teach others the wrong thing are not going to understand the lessons themselves. They are least in the realm of understanding, but those who follow the path and show it to others will themselves be living well within the happiness they seek. Remember from the Gospel of Thomas, verse 3. If your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. And 102, woe to the Pharisees, for they are like dogs sleeping in the manger of cattle, for neither does he eat nor does he let the others eat. What are we to eat? It is spiritual or rather mental consumption. We want the truth, and we want to learn the inward healing path, which is the framework of these religious stories. The practitioners do not know the way. So in this material, when you interpret it, a Pharisee is referred to, that's an analogous term. There were Pharisees back then, but it means something in the story that is never going to change. The Pharisee was a person back then teaching the gospel that didn't understand it, that is what a Pharisee is today, teaching the gospel and not understanding the template. In this material, a Pharisee is a standard practitioner of supernatural belief in God. The Christian themselves, if they are not interpreting and following the cryptic teaching of healing, are the same thing. Anyone who gets on their knees to pray to a deity and instructs you to look there, yeah, those are people breaking the commandments. They're not following the steps. This isn't about the 10 commandments. This is about the healing commandments. Okay, so my interpretation is this then. It goes from the original. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I've changed that to those who do not know the steps cannot teach them to others and are not understanding themselves. Those who do know and accomplish them and show others will feel inner peace. I've been making some modifications. I don't have this cleaned up, but you get the idea. Okay, moving on to 20. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, righteousness we have to identify, and it is. It is identified in a previous document, the other material. It's from Genesis. The kingdom of heaven within, it's like that as an analog. We must seek purity better than who? Yikes. Yeah. Who are the Pharisees and the scribes? Those are the people teaching you to get on your knees and pray to God. We see right up front, this tells us we have to do better than the theistic practitioners. Turning our pain over to a higher being doesn't seem to work. Like addressing your own pain, like Jesus actually teaches us at a mentally interactive interpretation level. We will see that as a guru. We will see that as this guru lesson unfolds. There we go. Happiness comes from our Father in secret after resolving our ought, not in turning it over to a higher power. It's right in the material. We are drivers of that process. Many people just need to credit supernatural sources. This also implies to me that we don't follow religious teachers. They teach the carrier, the shell. We are looking for the framework that they can't see. This is a common reference in Jesus' material. Do better than the teachers. They don't know what's encoded in there. So I've changed it to this. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. 2, if you don't gain purity that exceeds religious teachers, you'll never find inner peace. Don't follow them. Turn inward to self. That part's an implication. Okay, the next section coming up concerning anger. Actually, it's big enough that it's going to take a while. I think we're deep enough into the video that I should stop this one now so that it doesn't go on for an hour and a half. That would be not that great. I'll just pick up on number 3 right there. I'll sum this one up. And I always say I'll jump right into it next time, and then something happens that kind of tells you got to slow down and explain what you're doing once in a while because people aren't always getting it. And that's it. So in this video, I've done that. And, I'm very focused on doing it a very specific way. This is really I'm focused on the material, not trying to teach how spiritual, some guru or something like that. I'm interpreting the material the best that I can and then trying to interact with the material myself. That's what I'm doing. I'm not approaching this as somebody sitting up here saying, here, I know what's going on. Listen to me. I don't. I'm just trying to figure this out. Like, that city on a hill story. Okay. I come from a pretty poor place. Didn't look like there was much opportunity. And, as life went on, there was abuse. There were a lot of issues. At some point in time, I was a runaway, quit school, left home, left the abuse, was living as a young teenager on the street. Didn't even care. I was going to die. I was taken off the streets by people who said I was too young, who then promptly molested me. I had a lot of issues that at some point in time were so big they were never going to come out. What do you do to leave that stuff behind? You make friends with them until they're not monsters anymore. And then when you talk about them, you're like, whatever. You know what? I would have died. I'm okay. We have to get there. There's a part of us, I'm not quite sure how to say this. It's like we can be very small and we're very in that. We're very caught up in that. We are very much a part of our life experiences and wondering, what is wrong? How come this? You know, when people think you're a bad kid and you're like, I'm not. You don't know where I come from. And you begin to realize we're all like that. And who came before you got the same thing, and before them and before them and before them. And at some point you step back and go, oh my God, I'm part of a network. I'm not a victim. I'm just next in line. I got to figure out some way to let everybody off the hook, because me hanging on to that is keeping me here. It's hurting me. And nothing's going to eat me. I'll be okay. In fact, I will heal. And when I do, it feels so good that I want to do more. Let's take a moment and review what we've already accomplished. We'll look at it right now. I'm going to start it over again, just reading the Beatitudes, because I think familiarity, just going through this again and again, it's going to, it'll make more sense to us. It'll wire our brains a bit more, the repetition. Blessed are you who are devoid of judgments. You will achieve inner peace. Remember what judgments are up here. A judgment, as used, means something we have in memory and are holding on to with negative emotion and negative physical consequences in our life. It is a memory coupled with an emotion of varying magnitude. Depends on how bad it is, but with negative results for our life. It generally gets worse as time goes on. Okay, here we go. Blessed are you who are devoid of judgments. Devoid of judgments. You will achieve inner peace. Blessed are you who release your stored judgments. You will find inner peace. Blessed are you when you won't fight yourself. You will find inner peace. Blessed are you who desire inner peace with heartfelt passion. You will find it. Blessed are you who stop hating your memories. That will ease them. Blessed are you who are devoid of inner hurt. You will live through your higher awareness. The higher awareness is detached from the emotional experiences. It's bigger. It sees that big picture. It doesn't live through the memories. It lives outside of the memories. We have that. We need to live from there and not our memories. Okay, so let me read it again. Blessed are you who are devoid of hurt. You will live through your higher awareness. Blessed are you who make peace with your past. You will live with inner peace. Blessed are you who resolve what is in the way of your inner peace, for you will live joyous. Blessed are you when your inner hurt is awakened by our desire to heal, and so we face it openly. It hurts, feels bad, tries to hide, causes us to lash out, and so it persecutes us. It hurts to heal because we must face the hurt. But when we do face it, it goes away, or begins to. It diminishes. This takes time. It's a very easy step. However, it doesn't work very quickly because we are electrochemically habituated, organically habituated. We have to work past our neural pathways that want to do one thing, that feel one way. It takes a while for us to change that stuff. How long did it take us to become this way? Okay, but when we do face it, it begins to go away. Rejoice in that process. The healing will bring you more inner peace. This is how it works for everyone. Okay, so in this area right here, it's telling us how we came about and what we need to do to heal. And down at the bottom, that when we start doing it, it's going to hurt. We get here and it says, you begin life pure and unified in mind and experience. But when you experienced and judged life and became divided and lost the inner peace we seek, what do we do next? Well, when I've used my higher awareness, working with my consciousness and my memories to heal all of my hurt, to live through my higher awareness, my detached self, I will find freedom from and my life experiences from all, and my life experiences will be free. This is not here to replace your teaching or your call gurus on their own cryptic healing adventures. Jesus is not here for that. He's not here to make any changes. He's here to reinforce the teaching of a path to inner peace. When you're ready to heal, you need to follow the complete pattern pathway. Those who do not know the steps can't teach them to others and are not understanding the self. Those who know and accomplish them and show the way to others will feel inner peace. If you don't gain purity exceeding your religious teachers, you'll never find inner peace. Don't follow them. Turn inward to the self. So here we have a lesson. Step back. How did you come about? How do you heal? You started out one, you became two. This material has pattern steps in it. Go through it and find it. You find inner peace. And you cannot follow the people that are teaching. They don't know. You must turn inward with the material. You must interpret it and find it for yourself. It's a very individual path. What does that sound like? Buddha? Yeah. Lao Tzu? Psychology? The Bhagavad Gita? Et al. It's very prevalent and repeated. Okay, that's it for this video. Hope it was fun and interesting and that we're kind of getting on board with what's happening. I'm learning more and I'm getting better at it as I go along. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and feel free to leave them below. All right. Video number 3. We'll see what comes up next. Take care. See you then.